Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we are going to be continuing on with our C# programming tutorial series. And in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can create generic methods and generic classes in C#. Now previously we took a look at what exactly generics are, but here we're actually going to use them practically. Okay, so let's say that we have a method called so let's say we have a generic method called print. And this method will print out the the contents of toString. It'll print out the return of toString for whatever object is passed into it, or whatever value is passed into it. Okay? So, to do this, we need to say void print less than t greater than, and then open up for parameters, and we'll say t object, or we'll just call it obj. Oh, wait. Oh, okay, I see. Void print t, and it will say t obj. Here we will console.writeLine obj, just like that. Now, of course, this is a very, very simplified example, but I want you guys to kind of get the idea of what this looks like, so you can use it for yourselves later on. Okay? I urge you to take a look at the C# language guide and the documentation, because there will be other examples there too for generics and how to use them, as well as more information on the subject. Alright. So, how do we call this generic method? Well, we would call this the same way we would call any other method. Print, and then it just takes in any kind of object or value. In this case, we'll say 3. Print 3.14. Print 3.14159M. Print this is a string. Stuff like that. So if we save this and we run it, you can see that we should get all of those values printed to the console without issue. We can also go into our command prompt here. Here we go. We want a command prompt. And we want .NET run, like that. And so there you go. You can see that we have all of our different values there. So that method worked with many types with similar functionality and did not sacrifice the type safety. that we would have expected. All right. So now let's go ahead and get rid of all this. And what we will do now is we will create a new class. This class will represent a custom collection of sorts. Because if you remember, we took a look at how we can create a basic non-generic custom collection using using our indexer and stuff like that. However, because we now have generics under our belt, we can make that generic. So let's go ahead and go into our Solution Explorer. Right-click our project. Add class. Select interface. Or actually, we're not going to do interface. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so class. We'll call this my collection. Okay. Gonna fix this. Get rid of that. Make that public. Okay. So now how do I make this class generic? Well, in the exact same way that we made our method generic, by doing a less than t greater than, where t is our generic type parameter. That is what tells C# that it's generic. Okay, so now inside of here we can have our private list t underscore data public my collection this dot underscore data equals a new list of t. Here we will have a public int count, where the count will return the count of our data list. Then we will have a public void add t item, and we'll say this dot underscore data dot add item, and public void remove t item this dot underscore data dot remove item, like that. And there is our basic collection. Now, of course, we also need to add our indexer, but that is kind of the basic structure. So let's go ahead and quickly add that indexer down here. Public t this int index get if index is less than 0 or index is greater than count minus 1. We want to throw a new index out of range exception. After that, we want to return underscore data at the index provided. Then we'll have a set, and we'll say if index is less than 0, or index is greater than count minus 1. We want to throw a new index out of range exception. And then if we don't throw an exception, if everything's fine, we want to say this dot underscore data at our index is equal to value. There we go. Now we can do a quick sanity check in our error list. No errors to be found. We're good. So, you may have noticed that when we did our add and remove, we're using t, our generic type parameter, as a parameter for our method of add and our method of remove. And that is intentional, because we want these methods to conform, right, to take in whatever type we specify as our generic type when we create an object of this class. So if we go into Program CS now, and we say my collection less than, let's say, int greater than my collection equals a new my collection with the generic type of int we can then say my collection dot add 3 4 we'll say 5, okay? So we have 3, 4, and 5 added into the collection. We can loop through this by saying for int I equals 0, I is less than my collection dot count I plus plus, and we can do console dot write line my collection I. We can save this. Let's run our code by doing a .NET run. Okay, we do have an error, so let's take a look. Okay, let's save that and make sure. Okay, let's try that again, I guess. For int I equals 0, I is less than my collection dot count I plus plus. say console.writeLine at the index of I. Make sure that we have no errors. We're good. Now let's run it. And you can see we get 3, 4, and 5 printed to our console. So that pretty much does it for this video on how we can create generic classes and generic methods in C#. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one.